Forrest Gump is one of the all-time most popular movies ever made for a lot of great reasons. I remember seeing that movie and in all honesty was moved. And it's not a necessarily moving type of movie. There's so much that could be said about that movie, but a lot of it resonated with me. And that's why I want to tell you today about being God's own Gump, as in Forrest Gump. I've said that so many times and have given that talk to so many people just as an encouragement, because education and the lack of education and mental capacity, intelligence, knowledge, and wisdom is so much a part of my story. When I was younger, like a lot of people in children's Sunday school or something, I never wanted to be called on. Don't call on me to read out loud. And it wasn't necessarily a fear of public speaking or being in front of people. Maybe it was a little, but the big fear was, I can't read this. Like they would have to, when you'd read out loud and the teacher would tell you what the next word is and then you'd have to say it back. They would have to do that with almost every other word with me. And if we were in a group and it was coming around a circle and everyone was reading, I would have an excuse or have something happen or have to go to the restroom 2 people before it got to me. Like I was always trying to get out of it just because of embarrassment, because of the inability to do it. So then I realized in school I struggled so much just to have a baseline understanding or ability that my classmates have. And we're a small town, it was public school, and they were just flying by and I just couldn't get it. I just thought slow. Everything seemed lethargic and methodic and struggle, and like the pieces just wouldn't go together. It's so frustrating. But I never told my parents because you never want to let your parents down, and I felt like if I told them how I felt and how I was struggling, that it would somehow let them down. So I never told them. And then finally, in 3rd grade, they had put me in some type of remedial reading with 3 other students because I was so far behind. And man, you think that just hurt. It solidified in me that I'm not with everybody else. I'm different, and a different wasn't in a good way. It was below. And I was all boy, man. I loved being outside, loved playing sports, loved baseball. Like I would give anything to have a field day or a play day. Like when we had those, I'd thrive socially, and I'd be picked 1st or 2nd for the kickball teams and the dodgeball teams, capture the flag teams. But man, when it came to ever standing in front of class or having to do anything out loud from a class, it was horrible in my world. Horrible. So, in all honesty, you find ways to navigate. And my navigation led to trying to manipulate teachers with kindness, sweetness, out of defense or whatever, cheating as much as possible. Like, probably got too good at that. Anything I could to try to stay afloat with everyone else. So it's almost like this survival thing kicked in. It's just a classic story of almost becoming the dumb jock. But what was behind that, and how did you become that? And speaking of classic, today I'm going to share with you a classic cigar. This is the Ashton. Here. I don't know if that helps at all when I do that, but this is a classic. A lot of people, when they first get into handmade cigars, they smoke an Ashton. Very smooth. Very good. Man, it's just a great cigar. But anyway, that's a classic. So I was becoming this classic tale of not extremely smart but extremely athletic, and was just trying to survive with every way that I could, and struggled, and would always have these talks with my parents about, I'm going to do better, I'm going to do better. Because to them it was just, you're not applying yourself, you're not studying enough. But even if I had homework, they had their own stuff going on in our home, and I didn't want to bother them, and I didn't know how to do it, so I never really asked for tutor help or anything like that. So just kept passing, just getting by. Doing what I could do to make the grade, to get to the next grade, to stay with my friends in the grade we were in. High school was just an adventure. Like, would always get help from people. Just got through it. Became good enough in, as a matter of fact, my senior year, we had to talk about, get that going. There we go. That's good. We had to talk about what we wanted to do next, and my dream was to play college baseball. I knew I would never be good enough professional even, but to play college baseball was an absolute, outside of a miracle for me to accomplish something like that. And that was my dream, my goal. Like, I would get in the summer and had all these crazy workouts, would swing an oar through water to strengthen my forearms and my swing, and would catch these little the golf practice golf balls. Did all these drills to try to get better and better and better. And it helped. And I know what you're thinking, man, if you'd put that kind of effort into your academics, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. Well, you may be right, but you gotta have a coach. Like baseball, I had a coach and trainers, and I just didn't have that. Probably out of my own fault for not letting people know how bad the struggle was. But I remember in this class I was talking about that. Like, my dream is to play college baseball. And I'll never forget, this teacher said, Matt, you're not going to have to worry about that. You're not smart enough to get into college. What kind of encouragement was that? So that was just another coal on the fire. And to her defense, the effort that I showed in her class, she probably had reason to say that. And maybe just said it out of I'm going to poke the bear to get you going. I have no idea, but it hurt at the time. So just went forward with that. But I did get an opportunity to play ball. I'll do a that's another miracle video on that. But so I went to Virginia Intermont to play college baseball. And you want to talk about just felt like I accomplished something in my life. Instead of just always being told you're too short, you're too slow, you're too dumb, you're too this, you're too that. Like, man, you can overcome all that, but you've got to believe that God has created you, your mind, your body for a great purpose, and it's just figuring out how do we navigate this. So I hadn't done that yet, but that was just a great nugget in my life. And with having the opportunity to do that, there's so much excitement. But college was a different beast altogether. Like, I wasn't ready, and was putting so much time into baseball and socializing. Never could process what's going on in class. Like, I was thinking about who am I going to hang out with, like what am I getting for lunch. Oh, that new sandwich at Burger King was awesome. Just totally zoned out on what they're saying. Didn't know how to study, didn't know how to anything, until I had an art history teacher. Professor Brown, who saw a lot going on in me, and went to my baseball coach and said, listen, I've watched Matt, and I'm telling you, you need to take him to student support services and have him tested for some stuff. I think he's dealing with more than he realizes. Well, that was unbeknownst to me until one day after practice, the coach came to me and told me this. I was furious. Like, who is she to tell me, like, she don't know me? I'm not struggling. And the coach was awesome. He's like, hey, listen, man, let's just do it. You need a good grade in her class. Just do it to make her feel good. So I said, all right, cool, I'll go do it. Just attitude, chip on my shoulder. Didn't want nobody to know my struggles. So I go to student support services at Virginia Intermont College, and I met a lady named Barbara Holbrook. And that lady changed my life. Absolute godsend. Very positive, very calm. Had me come in. And the cool thing about student support services, it was a large house that VI had bought that was cross street on campus. So it's very homey. So it's not like you're going into a cold office. She's just sitting down, talking to me. Hey, Matt, tell me about yourself. She was so good at her job, so good. Hey, you know what I'd like to do, Matt? Won't you come in tomorrow? Just want you to go through some worksheets for me. They're not really tests, but just shows us different ways that we could help you. Like, she didn't call it this standardized testing thing. Again, unbeknownst to me, she was so good at her job, I didn't know what the tests really were. So I went, and there was a lot. Like, there was a lot back then. She was so good. I think she got me a milkshake or something. Hey, Matt, I just want to thank you for giving me some of your time today. Just, hey, I wanted you to have this on me, and I'll look at it, and we'll get back together. So she contacted me the next week, maybe, or it's a few days. So I went back to her office, and she said, hey, I'm so excited for you. I've got such great information for you. And I was like, really? I was hoping she was going to say, you're fine, and here's what we can do. It's not at all what she said, but she was so good at her job. She was just amazing. She had like 5 pages of you're ADD, you're dyslexic, you're learning challenged, you don't learn this way, one of your hearing is a little off, so that even affects the way that you auto process or something. So I'm hearing all this, solidifying the fact, hey, you're dumb. Like, that's what I'm hearing. She was never saying that. She said, but these last few pages, I want you to look at this. When you do hear something and you're being active in some way, you process. Visually, you are way above the chart of other students. Like, it's no wonder that you're an art major, because visually your world is opened. So then she started reinforcing all this stuff, and then she closed the pages, set them aside, and said, Matt, here's the thing. Do you believe there's a God? Absolutely. I grew up in church. I'm saved. Given the old school church, I'm saved, Barbara. I'm good. Because I was thinking she knew what me and the baseball guys were doing. I'm saved. I'm good. She said, Matt, God has given you a brain so unique and so gifted. And we're going to tap into that now. Now that we know what's going on, we're going to tap into that. And even going in there nervous and sweating and kind of chip on my shoulder, she saw all that. She had dealt with all this before, had absolutely turned it around and made me believe God did create me for something. And I am just different, and that's okay, because we're going to tap into it. And then she started a conversation with me just about, what was it like for you in school? And I opened up. She's like, Matt, this is just me and you talking. Like, let's just have a conversation. And I opened up and told her all that about not being able to read and all this stuff. And she said, that makes total sense. She said, you graduated high school reading on a 6th grade reading level. But you figured out survival ways, whether it was good or bad, you figured out ways to get through, and that's creative. And she commended me without scolding me for my mischief or my just finding a way to get through. And she said, listen, what was that feeling like? And I said, well, I had a high school teacher once ask me if I was high. And she said, what do you mean? What if the teacher had asked me if I was stoned. And she's like, well, did you smoke dope? And I said, no, not at all. But I was so lethargic in classes, I think all my teachers thought that I was a stoner, because that's how I went through life. And that's how I appeared, just fatigued, lethargic. And she asked me about, do you sleep well at home? Are you eating well? None of that was ever true. Always staying up late, always eating burgers, processed. And so anyway, she made that part of what she wanted to work with me too. But so here was the turning point. She said, here's what we're going to start with. I've talked to all your teachers. All your professors know what's going on. They're totally fine with it. You're not going to be singled out or anything like that. But I am going to ask you to start sitting in the front row. And I was like, what? She's like, now listen to me. Here's an opportunity. I don't want you to take notes. I want you to listen to the professor and doodle. You're very good at doodling quickly little scenes of fascinating stickmen in a scene of history or whatever. She's like, that's all I want you to do, is put the date on top of the page and listen to them and doodle. Because what that does in your brain, instead of all this just being words and words and writing words, if you're just listening and doing something with your hands creative, it sinks in for you. And outside of that, we do this with all of our students that we support. we'll have note takers. So when you come in, you'll come here once a week or twice a week, and we'll give you the notes for that class, and we'll go over the notes with you. So you're hearing them, not having to read, process this way. Also, all your textbooks will start getting, so you listen to them. And it was actually through the Congress Library for the Blind. So all my books came in cassettes with Braille on them. I told people I probably could have been bilingual with learning Braille because so many books were on tape for me. But part of that was it wasn't small headphones. So she's like, when you're listening, I want you to go for a walk or on a treadmill or on a bicycle. Like, do something active while you're listening to the text that you're supposed to have read. That opened up my world. My world. My coach found out about it and gave me a whole set of dramatized cassette Bible. So it was the whole Bible, wasn't paraphrased, and it was dramatized. So if they were talking about an ocean, you heard an ocean in the background, different voices for different characters. The Bible came alive to me in my brain for the first time, outside of just hearing Jesus stories in church, like on my own, getting to hear these things. And man, I just started a whole new world, whole new chapter of my life. My grades shot up. And as a matter of fact, before that, I'll tell you this, because of the first semester, it was at the end of the first semester that I got tests and everything. My grades were so bad, I was placed on academic probation, meaning I could only take the minimum classes the next semester. If I didn't pass them, I was out of school. And I couldn't play baseball. Like I was, hey, you're on academic probation. You're done. But still got to practice and be with the team and all that. But that sucked, dude. So that hurt so bad because that was my dream, to play college baseball. But when all this started changing, my grades started shooting up, made the dean's list. And because of the books, I remember going in to see Barbara and saying, hey, I know you got my textbooks on tape. And Coach Opp gave me a dramatized Bible. Can we get, like I can't afford a lot of cassette books. Can we order books just for me to enjoy even through summer outside of school? She smiled and gave me a hug and said, Matt, yes, absolutely. In 1 year, y'all, in 1 year, I listened to over 300 books because I'd never been able to read. And I wanted to. I always wanted to be smart. I always wanted to have that in my life and just never had the opportunity, was never given that. And you might say, 365, like that's not doable. Trust me, some of them were small books. I'd listen, if they were small, I'd listen to a couple, maybe 3 books a day, especially on the weekend. Like I stopped hanging out and socializing to some degree because I was, like the world had just opened. And it's just amazing to me. So now I had a plan. Well, because it was so late in the game, I ended up transferring to ETSU. Just different stuff at VI. I ended up transferring to ETSU. I went to their student support service, and there was not a Barbara Holbrook there. And it was just this ongoing battle of trying to get help, and it wasn't the same type of help, and it wasn't as good a department as what I had at VI. So the struggle just came back. So end up just quitting school at that time and went to work and started planning on getting married. So did get married, and I was in a Bible small group with 3 doctors, a CEO of a company, and then what was great? He had another title that was amazing, and me, who was a stock boy. Why I end up in that small group, again, just felt like I didn't fit in. But one night we were talking, and I said, I really got a desire to go back and go to school and finish my degree. And they all said, you know what, let's pray about it. So they laid hands on me, prayed over me. God, if this is what you got for Matt, then open the doors. And if not, then help him have a great adventure forward and show him what that is. So anyway, I applied to get back into Virginia Intermont. I wanted to go back there and finish it, what I started. And actually got a letter that said, due to basically too many people had applied, I was unacceptable. And due to so many people had applied and my previous grades, I was unacceptable. And it was a nice letter, but that word, chip on the shoulder again, just because of that one word, unacceptable. And I don't think it was a personal attack. It's just a formatted letter. But I told the guys in my small group, and they're like, no, let's pray again. We're not accepting that. They prayed again, and a week later, I promise y'all, I got a letter saying that they had so many slots drop out if I was still interested to come see the dean of students, this. Absolutely. I called them that day, said, I'm coming. Just don't leave me a slot. So it worked out, but I had to go back as a traditional student with learning difficulties. So I'm a traditional student, meaning I'm going during the daytime, normal classes with all these young college kids, me married now, and then working full-time at a warehouse in the evening. And during halfway through that journey, having Caleb come in the scene. So it was a lot, but I was fired up because Barbara Holbrook again, and just said, you know what, we're going to go one class, one day at a time. I laid out she was my advisor, laid out every class, and I would highlight after every class just to check it off. So it was an adventure. So I got to a point to where they said, they had said, listen, you have enough credits. If you take this one class, you'll get an associate's degree in graphic design, and it doesn't mess with your bachelor's degree of graphic design and marketing, but you just have enough credits if you want it. Because of my past, I said, absolutely. I want as many as I can get. So I took the class that next semester, knocked it out, and was mowing the yard during that summer, and got a big envelope from Virginia Intermont, and it was my associate degree. So I graduated the first time with an associate degree mowing the yard. I always love that part. That's another Forrest Gump. That would go well in Forrest Gump. And then continued through, end up graduating with Cardinal Key honors and different things. Had great grades, had 2 degrees, and only by the grace of God, placing the people in my path when I needed it to say the things that I needed to hear, would any of that be possible? Like, I feel like those are 2 just pieces of paper, but me, it was It was a God thing. It was what I learned on that journey, the adventure of that journey, and realizing Barbara Holbrook was so right. Like, all of our minds are created unique. If you struggle with learning and learning disabilities, bro, stop giving into that. Like, just figure out the way that you learn and go learn as much as possible. Like, light that fire. And when it's lit, like now, you have the opportunity with YouTube, with online courses. And granted, you got to watch what courses, like a lot of people put courses out there because they want to make money. Like, but if you want to learn something, you have the world's knowledge in your pocket. You don't have to wear a big headset with cassettes with Braille on them. You ain't got to do that. You just got to open it up and be dedicated to doing it and fired up enough to stay consistent with it and be like, you know what? I believe God created me with intellect that may not be the same as someone else, but it's just as good, maybe even better in some ways. Like, there were projects that I would be in class with some extremely smart college students and come up with a whole different concept, creative thinking that they were very black and white and they couldn't see, but then we would come together and they'd be like, man, that's awesome. How'd you come up with that? It's just the way I think. So I just want to encourage you, if your story is anything like mine at all, don't feel belittled. Don't put yourself down as the dumb jock, or you're just stupid, or you can't do this, or it's not going to get better, or it may take time. Like, it took me almost 20 years to get degrees in college. But what a great journey, man. So many professors, I earned their respect. Had some great talks when I graduated with people and got to share along the way with younger people that felt a lot like I did growing up and saying, no, don't believe that. That's a lie. That's a lie. You may struggle, but that doesn't make you stupid. And later on, I found this guy in the Bible and absolutely wept. When I had heard this and went back and found a tangible Bible and opened it up and started reading these words. This is from Proverbs. Let's see, this is Proverbs 30, verse 2. Surely I am too stupid to be a man. I have not the understanding of a man. I have not learned wisdom, nor have I knowledge of the Holy One. Proverbs 30 is said to be written by a guy named Agur. And let me tell you, Agur quickly became my favorite character outside of Jesus. Because check this out. I understood that. Absolutely, totally understood. He's not just whimsically saying, I don't know. Like, when you feel the way I felt, like you're Forrest Gump going through this life and people look at you that way, I could feel how he was saying this. And how he's saying this is deep, out of a brutal honesty as a man. And I tell people whenever I give them a talk about intelligence and God's unique intelligence and creative intelligence, I'd tell them about Agur, and I'd say, listen, this is, to me, one of the first documented cases of learning difficulties, learning disability, whatever you want to call it. Like, this guy had to have ADD, had to be dyslexic. Like, if he would have been tested, straight up would have had the same things that a lot of us have. And he goes on, gives some great wisdom, but through his chapter he'll say stuff like, I want to tell you 3 things. No, wait, 4. Such ADD. And he would bring wisdom out of nature, out of visually what he was seeing and hearing, and it's beautiful. And man, it spoke to my soul. and my mind. And my mind. Because, think about this, a gur who starts out his book of wisdom. Listen, y'all, this is the most read book in all of human history about wisdom. And tucked away in here, God puts a gur, the learning difficulties guy, in the most read book of wisdom. If you cannot see the irony in that and the God of creation in that, then peel back the scales from your eyes and stop being blind. Like, I connected with a gur, and that transitioned all my struggles and wanting to learn as much as possible and wanting wisdom and wanting to be able to think and speak the way others do into confidence. My confidence came from the Word of God through this guy. That's me, and God's going to use me. God's going to use my brain, my body, and my soul to do something that only He can do. To share with others, hey, this struggle is a lie from the pits of hell. Know that God didn't give you this and didn't create you in this dumbified way. He doesn't create that way. So since then, I have never stopped listening to books. I've never stopped with a hunger for learning, for wisdom and wisdom and wisdom and wisdom. That's why all that I've done and shared through this adventure, gotten to share with young adults, and I tap into them hard on this one. Within the first year, I always give them this talk. Did you do your best in class? Because I would have given anything to have your brain when I was sitting in your shoes. Don't let me outwork you, outthink you, and outlearn you. Plus, if God gave you a unique brain to be in a college education or any type of learning, sitting at home, sitting on a bus, anywhere, pour into that. Like He has you with the ability to learn unique things, that He's given you a desire to learn for a purpose that creates and builds His kingdom and helps build up others. That's you. You're the hero. You're the character in His next great story. Stop believing the lie and make the turn that, hey, just like Matt, God's own Gump, just like a gur, man, there is a path that says, yeah, you can. You absolutely can. Tap into it and tell Satan to go to hell. Get out of my face with that lies. I love wisdom, and I love learning now, and I love sharing it in a passionate way like you can't imagine, because I know what it felt like on both sides of the coin. Now have written a couple of books. Like my last year of college, I was given a project. My senior project was to market and create the graphics for some major, like, movie. You had to come up with an idea for a movie or something to be marketed out there. And it just came, and while I was working at the warehouse on these small shipping label stickers that you get on your boxes from Amazon or whatever, I would spit out, I was a shipper, like things would come down, I'd weigh them, type in the address, put the sticker on it, put it on the pallet. But I get these ideas just flowing through my head, and I take off a clean sticker and take notes on it. And I'd have a stack of notes, I put them in my pocket, and then when I go home, I put them in the computer for my project. It'll end up being a children's novel. Crazy. It wasn't very good, but it was extremely creative and wordy. But my professor came to me and said, Matt, you didn't have to do all this. Like, I had written a children's novel, 100 pages or so, done all the graphics of the character, the layouts of it, drawing a map. Like the cover of the book had a map of this land that I had dreamed up, and had a friend at the time, a little older than me, who was in that small group I told you about, was an executive, but on the side he'd always written songs and stuff, just crazy creative. Told him about the book, gave him a pre-copy of it before we published it, and he wrote a whole soundtrack to the book. So the book, when I turn it in, I have the book, all the marketing info, all the outline of all the graphics, and a 10-song soundtrack to go with it. And so my professor said, Matt, this is master's work. You didn't have to do all that. I said, listen, I just got into it and I couldn't let up. Like I just kept thinking of new stuff, and it was just, I was lit on fire about this project and just wanted it to be what God was guiding me for it to be. I didn't want to take shortcuts this time. I didn't want to manipulate. I didn't want to rely on any of that except my best effort. And he said, well, Matt, you got the highest grade in the class because of your project. Man, you want to talk about glory to God Almighty. And I don't tell you that bragging. I don't tell you I got degrees or wrote books. I tell you that to encourage you because of where I was growing up, what I thought that I was, and the things that people said, and you could see them whispering, and you feel that so deeply, and those scars were only healed by God Almighty through Barbara Holbrook and other people during that journey. So that's why I say God's own Gump. That's why I tell you that education, intelligence, knowledge, and wisdom are all a huge part of what God's created in me to share. Even in my endeavor in cigars, man, what's that got to do with it? Because to me, cigars were always for a certain part of society that I wasn't supposed to be part of. Cigars were always for the achievers, for the winners, for the wealthy, for the intellectual. So that was kind of a side passion of mine, is I'm not supposed to be into this or understand it. And that's where a lot of that started generating as a hobby for me also with cigars, is just the history of it and the learning of it and the enjoyment of God didn't kick me out of this class at all. And everyone that I've met through this, I told you, go watch the Why I Love Cigars. They've never known that. They've never known any of that part of my life, and never been anything but accepted by the people I share this hobby with. So now, becoming a speaker, all the things that I've gotten to do is because of that pain that I went through of thinking, I can't, I'm not good enough. And that was me saying it. It was never God saying it. So just remember that. So this is God's own Gump. I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is. Letting you know, man, God's created you and your mind uniquely. Tap into it, get on fire with some passion, and don't ever, ever, ever give up or quit. Keep learning the good stuff. Go make it a great day. I love you guys, and I mean it.